You don't rise to your goals. You don't suddenly become the version of yourself that can handle more, do more, or be more just because you decided you want it. You don't wake up one day and operate at a higher level simply because the goal exists in your head. Goals are direction. They're not transformation. They tell you where you want to go, but they don't change who you are, and that's the gap most people never close. You fall to your identity, and if you're being honest with yourself, that's exactly why you keep ending up in the same place, no matter how many times you try to change. Because it's not that you don't know what to do. It's not that you haven't tried. It's that the version of you showing up every day isn't built to sustain the life you say you want. And until that changes, nothing else will. You fall to your identity, and that's why you keep ending up in the same place, no matter how many times you try to change. Because you've tried before. You've had moments where you decided, this is it. You're going to get in shape. You're going to clean things up. You're going to start showing up differently. And for a little while, you do. You go to the gym, you eat better, you handle what needs to be handled. And it feels good. It feels like progress. It feels like maybe this time it's actually going to stick. And then you revert, you skip the workout, you eat something you know you shouldn't. You put off something you said you were going to do. And in that moment, there's a thought that hits. This is just who I am. Not loud, not dramatic, but it's there. And that thought, that's the problem. Because once you believe that, your behavior follows it. You stop fighting, you stop pushing, you fall back into what's familiar. Not because you want to fail, but because your identity pulls you back. And here's the deeper part most people miss. Your brain is wired to protect consistency, not progress. It would rather keep you in a familiar pattern that's uncomfortable than push you into an unfamiliar one that's better. Because familiar feels safe, even when it's holding you back. That's the part nobody talks about. People will tell you to set goals, to stay motivated, to be consistent. But none of that matters if your identity doesn't support it. Because you don't act based on what you want. You act based on what you believe you are. And if you believe you're someone who skips workouts, eats poorly when it's convenient, puts things off, then that's exactly what you'll continue to do. Even if you know better, even if you want better. Because identity always wins. And I've seen this play out in my own life, specifically with working out. I know what happens when I do it. I feel better, more energy, clearer mind, better overall. There's no question about it. And yet, there are still days where I don't go. Not because I can't, not because I don't have time, because in that moment, comfort wins, sitting still wins, avoidance wins. And if I'm not paying attention, that moment turns into a pattern. One day becomes a few becomes a week, and now I'm back in a place I already know I don't want to be. And the frustrating part is, I know better, you know better. This isn't about information. It's not about knowledge. It's not about figuring out what to do. You already know what to do. That's what makes it worse. Because now, it's not confusion. It's conflict. You're stuck between what you know you should do and what you default to. And your default, that's your identity. That's the version of you that shows up automatically, without thinking, without effort. And if that version of you isn't aligned with your goals, you're going to keep losing that battle every time. That's why you can start. That's why you can even be consistent for a short period. But you can't sustain it because you're trying to force behaviors that don't match who you believe you are. It's like trying to run a system on the wrong operating system. It doesn't matter how good the program is. If the system doesn't support it, it crashes every time. So the question isn't, how do I stay motivated? It's not, how do I stay consistent? The real question is, who am I? And more importantly, who am I acting like on a daily basis? Because that answer is already showing up in your behavior. Not what you say, not what you plan, what you actually do. And if you look at that honestly, you'll see it. The moments you avoid the gym, the times you choose comfort over action, the times you put things off, even though you know you shouldn't. That's your current identity. And until that changes, nothing else will. So how do you change it? Not with affirmations, not with motivation, not with some big dramatic shift. You change it with evidence. Small, repeated, undeniable proof. Because identity isn't something you decide once. It's something you reinforce daily. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you are. And right now, you've cast a lot of votes for the version of you that avoids, that delays, that chooses comfort. So that's what shows up automatically. But the same way that identity was built, it can be rebuilt, one decision at a time. Not massive changes, not perfect execution, just consistent proof. If you want to become someone who takes care of business, you need to start acting like that person daily. Not when you feel like it, not when it's convenient, when it's uncomfortable, when you don't want to, when the easier option is right there in front of you. That's when it counts. Because those moments are where identity is reinforced. You don't prove who you are on your best days. You prove it on your worst ones. The day you don't feel like working out and you go anyway. That's a vote. The day you want to sit around, but you handle what needs to be handled first, that's a vote. The day you choose discipline over comfort, even in a small way, that's a vote. And those votes add up, slowly, quietly, but powerfully, until one day you don't have to force it anymore, because it's just what you do. That's the shift. From forcing behavior to becoming the person who naturally does it. And that's what you said you want. Someone who takes care of business, takes care of themselves, takes care of their family. That's not a goal, that's an identity. And identities aren't built with intentions, they're built with actions, repeated over time. So if you want that version of you to exist, you need to start acting like them now. Not perfectly, but consistently. Daily physical activity, even if it's not your best workout. Structured day, even if it's not perfectly planned. Healthy interactions with your family, even if you're tired. Time for self-improvement, even if you'd rather scroll or sit. Because every time you choose that path, you're reinforcing something. You're telling yourself, this is who I am. Not with words, with action. And eventually, that becomes true. That becomes your default. That becomes the version of you that shows up automatically. And when that happens, everything gets easier. Not because life is easier, but because you're no longer fighting yourself. You're aligned. Your actions match your identity. And when that happens, consistency stops being a struggle. It becomes normal. That's the goal, not forcing it forever. Becoming someone who doesn't have to. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, this is just who I am, so just stop. Because that's not a fact. That's a pattern you've reinforced. And patterns can change. But only if you interrupt them. Only if you choose differently. In the moment that matters. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right when it shows up. Because that's where identity is decided. Not in what you plan. Not in what you say. In what you do. So be honest with yourself. Who are you right now? Not who you want to be. Not who you say you are. Who you prove you are. With your actions. And if that answer doesn't line up, good. Now you know what needs to change. Now you stop chasing motivation, stop chasing discipline, and start building identity, one decision at a time. And here's where this becomes real, not when you finish this video, but the next time you're faced with a choice, the next time you don't feel like doing what you know you should, the next time comfort is right there and discipline feels like work. That moment is your test. That moment is your opportunity. That moment is where you either reinforce the old version of you or start building the new one. So don't just watch this and move on. Don't just agree and forget. Pick one thing, one action, one standard you're going to hold today, and follow through on it, no matter what. Because that's how this changes. Not with ideas, not with motivation, with proof. Because you don't rise to your goals, you fall to your identity. So build one that actually supports where you're trying to go. And then prove it, today,